welcome to another episode of the Horn Club. In today's episode we're going to be exploring the horn solos from Brahms Symphony No. 2. There's quite a lot of transposition in the horn parts for this symphony, so I'm going to treat this video assuming you already know how to transpose. If you don't, not to worry, I will be doing a video on transposition at a later date, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that video. It's worth mentioning also that there are hundreds of videos on transposition, and one particular one that I like is a video by Scott Ledger explaining why we transpose and how it all works, and I've put a link to that in the description below. The solos we're going to be exploring today are all ones that I discovered when I was at music college in my early 20s. At that time I'd never really heard any Brahms before, certainly not that I was aware of, apart from one particular solo, which is the solo in the second movement that we're going to cover today. A beautiful solo, but horrendously difficult if you are not confident with your transposition. We're going to begin with the opening of the first movement. Horns 1 and 2 start with a short duet in D, quickly followed by horns 3 and 4 in E. Composers often split the horn section up like this, with two players being in one key and the other two being in another. The reason for this is that historically horns never had valves, so we would be playing on natural horns with, in this case, horns 1 and 2 in D and horns 3 and 4 in E. And so ordinarily we'd have to rely on hand stopping to get all the sort of in-between notes. But by having two players in one key and two players in another, that eliminates that need for the hand stopping, which creates a rather unpleasant sound anyway, and it doesn't quite fit in with the otherwise lush music. Beginning with the first and second horn, one bar in from the strings and then you're in. Keep everything nice and light and even, full length notes with a very subtle lean on the first of each bar. It almost wants to feel like it's being conducted in one. Third and fourth horn next, different notes but exactly the same style, and you want to try and match up with the same way, the same phrasing as the first and second horn have just played theirs. Moving on to the next solo, we've got nice long low notes from the second horn, while the first horn plays over the top, leading into the first big solo of this symphony for the principal horn. Watch out for dynamics here. Nice little swell for the first entry, diminuendo on the second, and then a big crescendo on the third, and then coming away to piano to finish. You've got the whole orchestra playing here as well, so you've got plenty of support around you to really project those high notes. If you've got a bumper, I would probably make use of them at this stage, because you've got the whole of the rest of the solo to get through, and it's quite tiring, so you want to save your lip as much as possible. So starting nice and gentle, really take your time and not do anything too fancy here. Big swell towards the written F, and then quickly come away, being careful not to release the support, as that will almost certainly cause a split. Then we have the stringendo and a big crescendo as well, so make sure you put a lot of energy into this. There are a lot of different interpretations of this solo. I've heard the stringendo go really fast, and I've heard it go really slow, barely anything at all, and everything in between as well. And so ultimately it's going to come down to the conductor, how fast this goes. What I'd recommend is just practicing this solo at lots of different speeds, so that when you do get to your first rehearsal and you get to this solo, you are well prepared for any eventuality. during the stringendo, I would make use of these crotchet rests as much as possible and really top up the air as much as you can, because you're going to need as much air as possible to get through the ritardando section, and there's really only one breath you can take during that section. So there are a couple of places where I'm going to point out where you can take that breath, but you shouldn't take more than one to get to the end of the solo. So from the stringendo. So you want to take a breath on every one of those crotchet beats, or at least that's what I do. I need to top up the breath as much as possible, and then I've got a full tank of air to get right through to the next breath. So we get to the ritardando bar, and this is where it slows right down, so make sure you're really watching the conductor still. The other thing also is, of course, don't let go of this. Don't let go of the support at any point. And really focus on blowing through these notes, okay? So you've got a written A flat there, so you're going to be playing an F, then down to the E, and then down to the D. If you let go of the support, even a smidge, you're going to split one of those notes. And the best way of making sure you don't do that is focusing on the airflow, the projection of the air through those notes, okay? Also, if you see, the diminuendo doesn't start until you're on that written F. Okay, so you've got plenty of support to use, plenty of air to use on those first two bars of the ritardando, and then you can start bringing things back a little bit. And then where I would breathe is after you've got the written F, then down to the written E, and then you've got the written E minim, and then the D crotchet. I would breathe in between those two notes, because that tops your air back up, and you've got then plenty of air to crescendo up to the written F, and then come away in a controlled way. Again, make sure you're really supporting well, coming away controlled, and landing down on that written C. Next up is the solo from the second movement. So it is notoriously difficult because of the transposition in H basso, otherwise known as B natural. It means that we are reading the music as if it's down a tritone, which is quite rare. Always watch the articulation, and that goes for anything really, a basic rule that should apply across all repertoire. Also make good use of the dynamics, as I find this actually really helps with not only projecting your sound, as we always should be, but also it helps with nerves. It's very easy to let nerves get the better of you with a difficult solo like this, particularly because not only is it quite an exposed solo, but you've also got the mental maths going on at the same time with the transposition. The best way to avoid nerves and any extra thinking, which is just a distraction, is to practice the solo or the part to the point where you can play it by memory. Because then you can just relax and enjoy the music, which ultimately is what everyone wants. No one wants to feel stressed, especially when playing your instrument. So starting off at the very beginning, you play your first two notes accompanied by the strings, so you quickly finish what they're playing, and then you're on your own for the next bar. You want to make this as smooth as you possibly can, so really think about the flexibility here. And then in the next bar, you're joined by the woodwind, who have an accompanying melody. In the third bar that you play, you and the bassoon are playing the exact same notes. So if you communicate with the bassoon player, they can cover you while you take a breath at the end of that bar, which will enable you to have enough air to get through the big swell in the next couple of bars. In bar 20, we start a bit of a build up towards bar 23 and 24. So you've got your initial swell that you really want to put some energy into. Take a breath before the last quaver in bar 21. That'll give you plenty of air to get through the next little section, and then take your next breath after the written C in bar 23. That will give you plenty of air to really swell up to the written high B flat, and then you take your next breath after the tied quaver written G, and that should give you plenty of air to get through the rest of that phrase. The final bit, just come in gently and then big crescendo through those descending crotchets, big breath before the syncopated written Gs, and then just make sure you lean on that C sharp and then come away to the D. So now I'm going to play through both solos, putting everything into context as usual. Hope you enjoy. Well, that's the end of the video. Hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any comments or feedback or any requests at all for future videos, please leave your comments down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.